Being a kid in the early 2000s, I've grown up with shows from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, even the early 2000s. I was born in 1997 and I had a great childhood. I lived in Tallahassee, Florida, and still living there as of today. I have happened to be a 22-year-old woman who would watch movies whenever I had nothing else to do. On top of that, I happen to be a big fan of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I've grown up watching them as a kid, so did my parents and my older brother, who is now 24, born in 1995. The Hanna-Barbera cartoons, everyone in my family, including myself, have grown up with the shows they have. The shows we all watched were the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Yogi Bear, etc. But one of our most favorite shows is Scooby-Doo. My family and I have watched most of Scooby-Doo shows and movies since the 70s to 2010. The reason for that being that the fact that Scooby-Doo shows and movies now these days, 2019, it's just not the same as we all remembered. The best Scooby-Doo movie that I would watch many times as I like is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. The movie is about Scooby and the gang all going to Moonstar Island that is in Louisiana to be filled with zombies and other messed up things happen. Well, the gang stayed there. I happened to see an early version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island back in 2017. It all happened in April, a month after my 20th birthday. It was April 8th when I was in my car driving around on a street in Tallahassee, Florida. I was looking for an apartment from my brother, who will be renting for when he was going to college. He will be with other college students, and everything was included in what comes in the rent and all of that. As I was driving, I spotted a coffee shop, so I decided to stop and grab a cup of coffee. As I got out of my car and walked inside the coffee shop, I grabbed a cup of coffee and a donut. As I was heading back to my car, I looked to my left side to see a man around my age who parked his car. He looked at me as I looked at him. He looked at me with a smile on his face as he spoke. "Well, isn't today a nice day?" he asked me. "Yeah," I replied nervously. "How are you today?" I asked him. "Really good. What brings you here today?" the man asked me. "My name's Otis and I live in Jacksonville, Florida." "I see. What brings you here, Otis?" I asked him. As he locked his car and then walked over to me to visit family that I have down here. "I stopped here to get a coffee," Otis replied. Soon we got in a conversation about things we liked. When I mentioned that I liked Scooby-Doo, we talked more into details about what Scooby-Doo movies were my favorite. I mentioned Zombie Island to him. He looked at me and replied that it was his favorite movie too. I tried to get it on DVD from Amazon, but when I got the DVD, it just didn't work. I used to have the movie on VHS until when my VCR broke down, I said Otis. And then I also mentioned that I was looking for the movie everywhere, but I couldn't find it anywhere. "Have you tried the iTunes store on your phone?" Otis asked me. "I do have an iPhone 7 at this time, and I don't use iTunes that much," I replied. "But I'm willing to try." Otis gave me an iTunes card which had $25 on it. iTunes has a lot of good stuff. Google Play isn't my favorite for some reason, Otis replied as I opened my car. Otis looked at me with a smile. "Search up Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island when you get home," he said to me. "You should be able to find it there." When I got back to my house, my brother David greeted me home. He gave me a hug as I returned the hug. "Found any luck?" David asked me. "Yeah, there's an apartment that is available for rent for college students," I replied to my brother. "I booked you to see the landlord for next week, and the time is at 10 a.m. "Alright, thanks, Bill," David replied to me as I had my coffee and then went to my bedroom. It was around 5 p.m. and my parents were working at this time, so I went to my bedroom and sat down on my bed. I went to the iTunes store on my phone, redeemed my iTunes store credit, which had $30 in total since I saved up $5. From that last time I used the iTunes store, I then searched up Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and waited a minute for the search results. When I found the Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island movie on the list, I noticed that below the movie I was looking for, there's a copy of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I took a look at it and it said, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, 1997. Wait, what? There must have been a mix-up or something else rather weird. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island came out in 1998, not 1997. I had to do some research on my laptop about the movie. When I researched the movie on Google, I went to Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island Wikipedia page for some info on the movie. I then found out that the movie was being made around 1997 and early in 1998, and then it released on September 22nd, 1998. I decided that I would look at the reviews of this 1997 version of the movie before getting the movie. One of the reviews I saw, they rated 1 out of 5 stars. One of the comments said, "Very dark and too violent for kids." Another comment said, "Why did this version of the movie being scarier than 1998 version of it?" I ignored the comments, thinking there would be more comments, but there were only 2 comments, but that was it. I downloaded the movie and I plugged in my earbuds on my phone. As I looked at the screen, to my surprise, the cover was a bit different. The cover had Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, Daphne, and Fred. It also had Lena, Samoyne, and Zach on the cover, along with some zombies in the background. After the movie was finished downloading, I played the movie and it all started with the intro to the movie. The intro starts off the gang solving a mystery, as they usually do in every Scooby-Doo movie, with the theme song playing in the background. When the gang solved their mystery as usual, the screen then transitions to Daphne sitting in front of a talk show host. And that's how we solved the mystery of the moat monster, one of our most frightening mysteries. Everyone clapped for Daphne as the talk show host cringed at the story. "No wonder why you became a reporter," the talk show host said at Daphne. "That moat monster almost sliced you up into a pizza. And then we wouldn't have Coast to Coast with Daphne and Blake, going in 2nd season, I might add. I never miss it." "Thanks, Chris," Daphne smiled at the talk show host. Why I started this career was the fact that the monsters we solved, they always turned out to be bad guys wearing a costume. "Got a little boring, eh?" Chris asked. Daphne giggled. "No kidding, in fact. That's why the gang went their separate ways," Daphne replied, "except for Fred and me." With that being said, the scene then shows Shaggy and Scooby watching Daphne on TV with her own show. They both sighed in sadness that the gang went their own ways, so Shaggy and Scooby continued their job until they walked into a room full of food. The next scene shows Velma working at a bookstore. When she sighed at the TV showing Daphne in her show, The phone rang, so she answered it. Hello? Velma answered the phone. She noticed that Fred was on the phone. Freddy? Jinkies! Sounds great. Count me in. Velma cheered. When the next scene shows Scooby and Shaggy, whom got fired after eating the food in the airport office area. Shaggy answered the phone when it rang. Hello? Shaggy answered the phone. Fred? Zoinks! Busy? Nah. Scooby and I were just taking some time off. Rare. Scooby replied. The scene transitions to Daphne standing at the front of her house. Fred pulled up to her house. Sorry I'm late, Daph. The traffic was brutal, Fred said as he stepped out of the van. I was starting to like this 1997 version of the movie. It was just like the 1998 version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island from what I remembered. When Fred opened the back door of the van, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby shouted, Surprise! It was Daphne's birthday, so the gang all hugged her. Thanks, you guys, Daphne smiled. Gosh, it's great to see you all. I hope you don't mind, but I asked the gang to come along, Fred replied as Daphne hugged her best friend. Thanks, Fred. This is the best birthday ever, Daphne replied as Scooby licked their faces. It's great to see you, Scoob, Fred chuckled. Velma then showed Scooby and Shaggy a box of Scooby snacks to the two. Had a couple of snacks, but they were a bit stale. We're going to New Orleans to solve a mystery in Louisiana, Fred announced. New Orleans has the best food in the world, Daphne added, and the best ghost, Velma also added. I hope so, Daphne replied. Well, let's get going. Hold it. There's just one more thing. Fred then revealed the Mystery Machine logo by pulling off Daphne's TV show banner off of it. Yes! Velma cheered. Mystery Inc. is back in business. With that being said, the gang all go to solve real ghosts and monsters, but no luck. As you can tell, the ghosts and monsters they find are people in costumes. Daphne was bummed out by this. The gang, were in Louisiana and New Orleans. I've got a show to do. I need a real-life ghost, Daphne said. I want a house that is for real haunted. There is, a voice of a woman said. I work there as a maid, and the house really is haunted in Moonscar Island. Jinkies, Velma was amazed and surprised. My name's Lena Dupree, Lena said to introduce herself. Fred Jones, Fred replied. This is Velma Dinkley and Daphne Blake. Moonscar Island? Daphne asked in confusion. Where's that? It's in a bayou not far from here. A pirate named Moonscar died on the island, and his spirit is said to haunt the place, Lena replied. Nah, that's just fake, Fred brushed it off. It's pretty much just some guy in a pirate costume to scare others off. The ghost is real if you're too scared to go, Lena replied. If you want to check it out, I'll be leaving as soon as I'm finished shopping. Though Lena said those lines, it sounded like she was flirting with Fred. Lena's kind of cute, Fred said about Lena. This made Daphne not happy. Fred, Daphne scowled. Jinkies, Velma exclaimed in shock. In Moonscar Island, there has been some people going missing on the island. No bodies were found in decades. Sounds creepy, Daphne replied. We better go before Lena takes off. The scene cuts to Shaggy and Scooby eating a huge sandwich as they always did. Come on, you guys. We found a haunted house to check it out. Fred said to Shaggy and Scooby. As the scene fades to the gang following Lena and her pickup truck to drive around to a ferry boat, the gang drove into the ferry. A man who was driving the ferry, named Zach, was telling the gang of stories of pirates and people going missing. Morgan Moonscar is the famous pirate of the bayou, Zach said as he talked more about more stuff, but it was confusing about what happened on the island since he talked almost too fast. Here's the island, Zach said as he lets Lena and the gang out of the ferry with their vehicles. Hang on, the roads are bumpy, Lena warned. The gang followed Lena through the roads of Moonscar Island. It was very creepy. The swamp all around looked like it was from the 1930s, but 10 times creepier than it already is. In the distance, as the movie shows, a house was coming into view. Wow, there's one haunted house, Daphne said, as Fred was holding the video camera while captured every moment. When he sees a ton of cats around the property, Scooby went nuts by jumping out of the mystery machine and caused a riot. Scooby, leave them alone, Daffy called out to Scooby. Scooby, stop! Shaggy called as he grabbed Scooby-Doo by the collar as soon as he bumped into another woman who walked out of the haunted house. Who brought this dog? A woman with short blonde hair asked as she pointed at Scooby. The gang apologized to the owner of the house about Scooby. They then explained about what they were doing here. So Lena explained to the owner of the house more stuff, and the woman introduced herself as Simoy. Your house is beautiful, Daphne said. How old is it? Fred asked. It's been in the family for many years, Simoy explained. It was a pepper plantation. Some of the hottest peppers grows on this island. So, Simoy, is your house really, Velma began, haunted? Simoy asked Velma, interrupting her sentence. Yes, it is an old house that with restless spirits. You can look around if you want. I would be most flattered if you're going to be taping. With that being said, Lena explained that their new gardener named Bo would fix the damage, so the gang looked around the house while Scooby and Shaggy snuck into the kitchen to eat as usual. So far, this 1997 version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island was interesting. It was just like the 1998 version of the movie, but since this was the beta version, I was getting more interested in what was going to happen next. The next scene shows Shaggy and Scooby eating the food as they always do when they see food. This gang were in the lounge area where Shaggy and Scooby screamed. They screamed because of the fact that the peppers were so hot. A few minutes later, Shaggy and Scooby screamed again. Peppers again? Daphne asked. Riding, Scooby replied. Ghost riding. This place is haunted, Shaggy explained as the words writing was get out in the 1998 version of the movie, but in this 1997 version was more disturbing. I paused the movie and looked at the writing more closely, and it said, get out or you'll die. Now, that is a bit disturbing for a kid's movie, but this is a beta version of the 1998 Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, so I brushed it off. Daphne explained about the spirits of the mansion being haunted. When a cold wind blew through Daphne, she shook her head. Cut! Who the hell opened the window? Daphne sounded like she had a freak out. Mild swearing in a kid show is not too bad, but usually there was never swearing. I could see that the writing also something else under the first writing. The second writing said, they're coming for you. Now, that was even more disturbing than the first message, but I knew that the house was haunted, so stuff like this was to be expected. Isn't this great stuff or what? Daphne was getting excited at this point. She is into scary and freaky stuff. I was into that stuff too. The hauntings must only be the beginning, but when the sun sets, the ghosts get creepier. Simoine explained as Fred then films Velma floating into the air. How was this possible? Velma was getting weirded out by this. So Shaggy and Scooby pulled Velma down to the ground. The next scene fades to the gang looking through the camera footage, and they took a better look at what was making the writing appear. Fred zoomed into the footage to see a ghost of Morgan Moonscar. Simoine shows a book to the gang of what was happening. We don't get scared that easily, Daphne said with excitement in her tone. The next scene transitions to Scooby and Shaggy having a picnic outside near the garden. Then Scooby sees the cats again. The chase goes on again. The scene goes on until a grouchy fisherman looked at to see Scooby. He was being a riot. "You mutt! Get him, Mojo!" the fisherman said. Now, Mojo is the fisherman's hunting warthog in the 1998 version of the movie, but in this 1997 version, Mojo wasn't a warthog, but he was a tiger. He chases Scooby as he runs past Shaggy. He turned around to see the tiger running very fast. Zoinks! Shaggy shrieked when he saw the tiger. So Shaggy and Scooby both ran as fast as they can to ditch the tiger. They soon fell into a deep hole. Shaggy and Scooby looked up to see the tiger roaring at them as the tiger walked away. Shaggy and Scooby then looked at the sky to see a zombie pirate, which is Morgan Moonscar, groaning and moaning. Shaggy and Scooby quickly jumped out of the hole and then ran away screaming until they bumped into the gardener. The gardener was pissed off. "What the hell are you doing out here, ruining my flower beds?" Bo asked with anger as Velma, along with Daphne, Lena, Simoine, and Fred appeared from the bushes. "What's going on, you guys?" Velma asked. "We can't hear you screaming from the house. We saw a pirate Moonscar. He looked like a zombie," Shaggy explained. "Oh dear," Simoine said. Shaggy and Scooby then took the gang to see where they found the zombie. They got to the hole and looked inside. "Are you sure you saw a zombie?" Fred asked. We should know a zombie when we see one," Shaggy replied. Velma asked the gardener some questions, but he ignored them and walked away. "He is kinda cute," Daphne said. "Well, maybe we should get going," Fred suggested. Daphne replied that she didn't want to leave yet. Simoine then offers the gang to spend the night in her haunted house, which the gang agreed with that. Lena then said that she would get dinner started. The scene fades to Lena showing the gang to their rooms. Shaggy then asks when dinner will be ready at. "I never knew anyone who would eat that much as you guys," Lena chuckled. When Lena showed Fred his room, she flirted with Daphne when she wasn't happy with Lena flirting with her best friend. "Thanks." Daphne turned around when she walked in her room to see that Lena was gone. Now Daphne's eyes were filled with tears, as I can tell that Daphne was going to cry. I had a feeling that Lena was stealing Fred away from her. She had a crush on Fred at the same time Daphne does. The next scene shows that the gang in the dining room when Simoine suggests Scooby to eat somewhere else. Lena made a suggestion for Scooby and Shaggy to eat inside the mystery machine, which they agree, and Shaggy and Scooby were seen inside the van eating dinner, when Scooby was getting pissed off at the cats being a nuisance. Shaggy drove the van down the swamp to find a quiet area to eat. As they ate a hot pepper, the scene goes normal where Shaggy and Scooby ran into the swamp to drink some water, where a green light is shown and points down deep in the water. When Shaggy and Scooby looked up to see a zombie crawling out of the ground, they began to see more zombies around the place. Shaggy and Scooby were able to drive down a few miles when the mystery machine got stuck. I can see that the zombies were looking really decayed. They had some blood on their clothes and even their flesh was being shown. This was getting a bit more disturbing, so I ignored it. The next scene shows back at the haunted house where the gang hears Shaggy and Scooby-Doo screaming. The hauntings are just beginning, someone said to the gang at the dining table. We better go find Shaggy and Scooby, Velma said. Fred agreed and said to Samoyne and Lena that they would be going out to find Shaggy and Scooby. Samoyne agrees as the next scene transitions to Fred, Daphne, and Velma walking around the bayou, around the swamp. They soon ran into Bo, who said that he heard screaming, and he mentioned that he ran into Shaggy and Scooby again, screaming about zombies. I'll go with Bo, Velma said as she went with Bo and Daphne. Bo and Daphne and Fred both went together. The scene was just going just very well and normal. When Daphne opened the van doors and screamed, the scream sounded like Daphne being stabbed by a killer. What the hell is this? Daphne shrieked. She saw leftover dinner. I thought there was going to be a dead body or something, but luckily there wasn't. Fred climbed into the van to have a closer look. Well, I guess the boys liked your girlfriend's dinner, huh? She's not my girlfriend, Daff. Fred replied. I just said I enjoyed her cooking. Daphne then left something grabbing her shoulder. As she grabbed the arm of someone and threw it over her shoulder. Daphne, are you... Fred then was cut off by Daphne's ranting. I can't handle myself, thank you, Daphne replied. Fred got a closer look to see a zombie pirate. I think it's the gardener, Fred said. We'll just see about that, Daphne said as she tried to pull the head off the body. Shaggy and Scooby then showed up and freaked out the pirate zombie. It's pretty much a mask. It's the cheesiest mask I've ever seen, Fred said. But Daphne couldn't pull the head off the pirate zombie. It feels real, Daphne said. Fred then gave it a try, and within a few pulls, the head popped out, revealing some blood squirting out of the neck. Now, that was very disturbing. Like, why have blood in a kid's movie? It's real, Fred was surprised. The headless body got up and picked up the head and replaced it back on his head, on his neck. Placed it back on. Daphne and Fred were surprised to see more of the zombies appearing from everywhere in the swamp. Shaggy and Scooby ran away again. Then all of a sudden, Daphne and Fred heard a blood-curdling scream. The scream was from Lena, and it sounded like she was being gutted alive. It's Lena! We left her and Samoyne unprotected, Fred said as he and Daphne began to run. Until Fred dropped the video camera into the quicksand and it disappeared. Fred and Daphne began to run away from the zombies. The most disturbing thing is that the zombies were decayed and covered in blood. Now I was starting to get a bit nervous about this freaky 1997 version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I mean, why would blood be in a kid's movie? I continue to watch the movie as the Terror Time Again song begins to play as the two duos are running away from the zombies. Daphne and Fred met up with Bo and Velma again, and explained about what was going on when they all floated in the air. They were panicking on what was going on. Then another scene fades to Shaggy and Scooby playing with dolls that looked like their friends. I wonder who made these dolls, Shaggy asked as he and Scooby were soon chased off by bats. They soon ran into more zombies. The next scene shows Daphne and Fred, along with Bo and Velma, inside Samoyed's house. They were looking for Lena and Samoyed when Fred fell through a staircase. Lena explained about the zombies spotting her and Samoyed, and she said that zombies dragged Samoyed away. Lena was in Fred's arms at this point. Don't worry, we'll find her and it's going to be okay, Fred comforted Lena as he, along with Velma, Bo, and Daphne, walked down the tunnel. By the time they reached the voodoo ritual room, it was a trap. It's too late for you now, someone chuckled evilly. She and Lena used the voodoo dolls and tied up Fred, Daphne, Bo, and Velma up. I'm so sorry, Fred. I'm sorry, Fred. I really do like you. Lena smirked evilly. Just what are you planning to do to us? Fred asked. It's very simple, Samoyed explained. She turned to face a moon dial. Soon the midnight point reached on this moon dial, and then the ceremony will begin. Samoyed replied. You won't get away with this, Daphne ranted as she struggled to get free as Samoyed and Lena both chuckled. We've been getting away with it for 200 years. Samoyed laughed as she and Lena started to transform into their werecat forms, which was only part of the transformation. At least Shaggy and Scooby are still free, maybe, Fred whispered. We heard that, Fred, Lena scoffed. Those two pain in the asses. Why didn't we didn't give a crap of making voodoo dolls out of them? Then none of them hissed. What the hell are you planning to do with us? Fred asked. Every harvest moon, we drain the life out of those who are on the island, so we can be immortal, someone explained. This is more haunted stuff than I ever imagined. Daphne was horrified along with her friends. The next scene shows Shaggy and Scooby at the docks of the ferry. They see Zack walking towards them. I'm happy to see you all, Zack chuckled as he transformed into a werecat. Shaggy and Scooby started to run at this point as the man werecat chased Shaggy and Scooby in the swamp. The next scene shows Samoyed along with Lena, Fred, Bo, Daphne, and Velma in the voodoo ritual room. Morgan Moonscar, he caused all this. Samoyed started explaining to the gang about the history of how Morgan Moonscar caused Samoyed and Lena to be who they are as of now. This flashback was taking place around the 1700s. Samoyed explained that she and Lena were settlers in the island, claiming to be their home. But when the Moonscar and the pirates showed up in the land, they trashed the settlers' stuff and chased most of them into the bayou. But this flashback was even more dark than the 1998 version of the movie. We see some of the settlers who were held back by some of the pirates, who held them back in the camping spot. Lena and Samoyed were hiding in a tree to see the settlers that were in the bayou. Crocodiles were eating the settlers in the water. The swamp became a bloodbath, and screams and cries can be also heard. Lena and Samoyed gasped when they saw the settlers getting eaten alive. Another thing Samoin mentioned that was much more disturbing. Samoin explained that some of the settlers were being violated in many ways. So, yeah, I'm not going to say about what the pirates did to them, so you can imagine what has happened to them. We put a curse on the pirates to destroy them as they destroyed our island. Our wish was granted, someone explained, that she and Lena became cat creatures and killed all the pirates. But after that, the cat god's power cursed them as well. Over the years, people still come to our island, Lena explained. Another flashback appears with spice traders that started a pepper plantation house. When the next harvest moon showed up, Lena and Samoin explained that they would lure people to the island. Just like how you lure us, Fred explained. And those zombies are the dead souls you've drained. They're trying to warn us, Daphne said as another cat shriek was heard. Sounds like Zack has found your friends, Lena growled. The old man wanted to be immortal, so we gave it to him, someone replied. The next scene shows Shaggy and Scooby running until the cat creature appeared in front of them. Going somewhere? Zack picked him up, Shaggy and Scooby, and looked at them. What's the matter, cat got your tongue? Zack then roared at Shaggy and Scooby as the zombies walked towards the cat creature and started to tackle him. Now, Scoob, this is our chance. Shaggy and Scooby ran away as they can. Soon they ran inside a cave and knocked Samoin and Lena away from their tied-up friends. Look out! Velma said as Shaggy and Scooby looked to see Samoin and Lena getting up and growling. I've had enough of that dog, Samoin growled. I was surprised that Samoin almost said the F word. Samoin and Lena then transformed fully into cat creatures and started to chase after Shaggy and Scooby. Velma grabbed one of the voodoo dolls and freed herself, and then she freed her friends from being tied up. The zombies found a way inside the cave as they attacked the cat creatures. Shaggy, the zombies are the good guys, Daphne said as Shaggy and Scooby were then chased by Zack, who grabbed them. Scooby saw one of the peppers and sprayed the juices on Zack's eyes, who groaned in pain. Lena and Samoin grabbed Shaggy and Scooby and began to drain their lives. As they were pulled away all of a sudden by Daphne and Velma, who made voodoo dolls out of them, Samoin ran up to Daphne and looked at her with angry eyes. You know what, Daphne Blake? I'll just kill you like in what every creature does in a horror movie. Samoin raised her right paw and gave Daphne's face a good swipe across the face. Daphne groaned in pain as she looked at Samoin with scratch marks on her face. Her left eye had a cut and her eye was bleeding. Fred, along with Bo, made sure Shaggy and Scooby were okay, which they were good. Thank goodness. Daphne was being scratched to death by Samoin as Daphne was trying to keep the beast off of her. Samoin was attacking Daphne like a hunter from Left 4 Dead would do. Get it off of me! Daphne screamed as Fred shoved Lena out of his way and then kicked the cat creature off Daphne. Zack, and Lena, along with Samoin, were walking towards Fred. Velma and Bo, when they started to smoke and decay, the curse was broken. They soon decayed into bone as the zombies did the same. What's happening? Shaggy asked. Their spirits are decaying, Shaggy, Velma explained. They can finally rest in peace. With that being said, all the zombies and cat creatures were gone. The gang then soon turned to see a beat-up Daphne. She had scratches and bruises on her. I I saw a big gash what was shown on Daphne's legs as her clothes were stained with blood. Hang in there, Daphne, Fred said as he held his best friend. We can't get help. We can't. Fred? Fred? Daphne asked weakly. Yes? Fred asked Daphne as his eyes started to water. You're my best. Daphne coughed as she looked at Fred while he held one of her hands. Best friend I've ever had, Daphne said. No, Daphne, don't do this. I can't lose you now. Fred, take care of the gang. Daphne replied, and I love you more than anything. Daphne said as she closes her eyes. Fred started to cry along with Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy and Bo were all crying the loss of their friend. I started to cry a little myself too. I think this movie wanted to kill off Daphne, but luckily they didn't show this part in the 1998 version of the movie. Then the last scene transitions to Fred looking at the sunset. I'm sorry, Fred, Velma said as she tried to comfort her friend. Fred looked at the sunset. Oh, Daphne, Fred said sadly. Fred! A voice called out. Bo appeared and looked at Fred. Look who's back. Bo stepped into the side as Fred looked to see Daphne. Walking up towards Fred. She did have a bandage around her left leg where the huge gash was. She had a lot of scratches and her left eye was able to be open again, but even when she had a black eye, what matters is that she is alive. Daphne! Fred ran up to Daphne as the two both hugged each other when they got close enough. I thought I'd never see you again. Bo, I knew I was alive, Daphne said. He treated my wounds. Thank you, Fred said to Bo, for saving my girlfriend. Fred and Daphne then looked at the sunset, and the two finally kissed. The credits then rolled, and then the phone screen went black to the iTunes store. After watching that 1997 version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, I was surprised. I knew that the 1998 version of the movie was dark, but I didn't expect the 1997 version to be even more dark. Questions were inside my mind. I am sure that this 1997 version of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island wasn't released until 1998 due to graphic content and other things. I wasn't too disturbed by it, surprisingly. I decided that I would show it to my best friend who used to love this movie. I went to bed that night when I woke up and showed my best friend the 1997 version of the Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. She was surprised by it as I was. I tried to find out why Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island from 1987 was 10 times darker than the 1998 version of the movie. I did have some theories and thoughts on the movie, and one of them is that rare cats could be real creatures. That is, I have no idea. I then thought of a theory on why the movie was 10 times darker than the 1998 version of the movie that I know. Did the creators of the movie want to kill Daphne off? That may be why Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island didn't come out in 1997 for that reason. I still don't know why the movie wasn't released until 1997, but all I could say is that my imagination itself. Now it's 2019. I still have the movie on my movies app on iPhone 7, though. If you want to see this 1997 Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, you have to come to Tallahassee in Florida, as I can't post this on YouTube due to copyright reasons, and not to scare any young children and fans of the movie. I do watch this 1997 version of the movie from time to time, but it's not as much as I did back in 2017. I never got any nightmares of the 1997 version of the movie. And I will still remember this movie off by memory. And for those who ask me on what happened to Otis, that is a question I don't know how to answer. Well, my disciples, that was Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island by the Lion Queen. My final thoughts on this story? Pretty good story, to be honest. Now, which the story was very much a good one, though, because I liked everything about this story. Like, I liked the plot, the protagonist, this episode itself, the closing remarks. Everything about the story was well put together. The characters were well put together. Otis was okay in my book. And judging by the characters, they seem to be nice and very well written characters, to be honest. And also, the Lion Queen, you did a damn good job on writing this. I like the whole plot with it being a unreleased version of the original Zombie Island. The characters, everything that the characters did, how they reacted, everything, that was good. This was very good. Like, to the point where I have to snap like this, that's good. And the Lion Queen, you should write more, because I bet you can come up with some more interesting stories. Like, I'm going to be coming up with another story in the next couple days to write after my Robots alternate ending story, and that which I hope you like that. And also, alright, with that said, with the compliments on this story, there are a few flaws that I have to go out of my way and say. Now, there was a few flaws that I didn't find so appealing with the story, is that the poor grammar, though, but I'm not going to say that the grammar wasn't readable, but it was readable to the point where I could understand what you're trying to mean. But you did your best, and I'll give you that. But like I'm saying, is that that's only one flaw I had. Everything else in the story was downright awesome. It was very much great. And that which, let me tell you something. Hold on. With this story being a good story written by the Lion Queen, I'll have to say, well done, Lion Queen. Very much, you did a very good job. And that's my review on that, but on this story. And now it's time to go on to the theories on what could have happened, and what could have happened to make all the events in the story to go down. So, I'll get to that right now. Alright, here is the theory about what could have happened in the story. Is that, judging by the man who gave the DVD, the card, to Belle in this story, is he could have put that version of it on the iTunes place before he met Belle, and he intentionally put that on there to scare Belle, because there are some people like that in real life who like scaring the absolute scaring people to hell with these kinds of things, and some people can be really sensitive to fear, and that which people I know in real life can kind of have that happen. But another theory is that she could have dreamed about all this and was just making this up and just telling her experience from the dream that she didn't remember dreaming about, and she thinks that did happen to her in real life. And another theory I possibly have is that they try to try to create it as a possible end of the Scooby-Doo franchise by killing off Daphne. But they thought it would be too scary and too emotional for Scooby-Doo fans to take in, so they changed it to where Daphne survived, and Fred and Daphne officially start their relationship. But that's the most plausible theory I have. So anyway, here's my final thoughts and rating. This story was very good, to be honest. It was one of the best stories I've ever read. Well written characters, everything that the Lion Queen did right in this story. And also, again, the Lion Queen, you did a damn good job on this, and you should write more stories like this one, for masterpieces like this one. And anyways, my disciples, what's your thoughts on the story? Do you enjoy the story? Did you not? If you didn't already, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below and about it. And also, here's my rating. My final rating I would give this story is a flat out 10 out of 10. That which, Lion Queen, again, you did a damn good job on this story. And I'll credit you, and I credit you on how to make this, on making this. And I'll take this story into account and write more stories like this one. And I very much thank you for inspiring me to write. Anyway, my disciples, like I said earlier, subscribe, and ring the bell for more notifications on videos like this one. And your Lord, the Dark Warlock, is out.